I'm Greg Lang from Michigan State University. I'm at the NC 140 Sweet Cherry Training Systems trial at our Clarksville Research Station, which is now 8 years old. We're going into the 8th season. It's a very interesting trial that has different rootstocks, different canopy architectures, and different covering systems. And this year looks like a particularly good year to evaluate all of these different factors. So I'd like to give you a brief update on how the different training systems are performing, how we've learned to utilize the different covering systems, and we'll just walk through the orchard and address trees as we come along. When we start out right here, we can already see that over here on the left we have full bloom. It's April 29th, and when we look over on the right, we're looking in the covered orchard where we're at fruit set. We've passed full bloom. We're probably 10 days to 2 weeks ahead this season. It's been a good year for pollination, probably one of the best we've had thus far. The trees are mature, so I'm really looking forward to the harvest that we're going to see probably sometime in June. If we walk over here outside, we'll take a look at the blossoms first and just take a look at some of the different training systems. So we've finally gotten to the point that we've seen cumulative yields from the last 4 years put together to see which systems are performing consistently at year 7 in terms of high productivity. And our best have been the UFO, upright fruiting offshoots training system, very narrow planar trellis system, probably pretty much equal to the tall spindle axe TSA system, which are our trees over here. Much more traditional three-dimensional canopy. So the yields have been similar, but we've taken data on harvest times, pruning times, and we find that the decisions that need to be made in a traditional three-dimensional canopy are pretty extensive, and it takes a long time to work ladders in and out to pick fruit, to make a decision on how do I prune a big branch compared to a small branch. And we greatly improve the efficiency of that when we move to a planar system like this UFO. The fruiting wood is very similar. The crop load is pretty uniform. We can utilize platforms rather than ladders, so it's safer for pickers, more efficient for labor. And when we think about different types of covering systems, the retractable roof X-frame Cravo, which we'll walk into in a minute, is clearly gives you the most control over all environmental factors. But we're very keen on looking at the flat roof Cravo as well, which allows water to come through in defined areas. And now with the training system that is no more than about a foot wide in terms of fruiting area, we think that we can match a training system to a covering system to really optimize the best of both worlds. So as we walk on, I'll cover the whole tree inside. Walk on, we'll just see a couple other of the training systems. Here's the SSA, the Super Slender Axe. So this is our other narrow fruiting wall type training system. But when we look down the trellis wire, you can see here we're now at about 2.5 to 3 feet wide compared to that UFO. So here after 8 years, we've got very clear distinctions between the different canopy architectures. UFO being narrowest, SSA being next narrow, still a fruiting wall, that tall spindle or TSA, traditional central leader, or a multiple leader bush, the Kim Green bush, which we'll get to in a moment. So we've learned that this is the most productive training system through the first 4 years, but from year 5 onwards, the other systems have caught up and surpassed that system. So we're at the stage of really understanding what the early benefits are compared to what the long-term benefits will be. So here we're at a KGB, multiple leader Kim Green bush type training system. You can see it on a strong growing rootstock very vigorously. Over here we have it on a weaker rootstock. So part of the interest in this whole trial is 4 different canopy architectures with 3 different vigor levels of rootstock, from dwarfing to semi-dwarfing to semi-vigorous. Here we'll look back, I guess, at the whole canopy renewal is the latest research objective we've brought into this trial over the last 2 years. We're trying to understand how to maintain that high productivity, maintain high fruit quality over a very long period of time in high density orchards. And we believe the key to that is renewal of new shoot growth, which ultimately becomes new fruiting wood. And so here is a tree that we did a whole tree renewal of last year. We cut all of the permanent fruiting wood off to regrow it. And so in one growing season you can see 3 to 5 feet of new vegetative growth, all very uniform, has filled back in very quickly in the space of 1 year, and we'll be back in full production on this fruiting wall, I would think, by the 2nd year after the whole tree renewal. And we've done this sort of thing on all 4 of the training systems and the rootstocks to evaluate which ones perform best. So let's go inside the Cravo now and take a look at what a different stage we're at. Outside we're at full bloom. We still have honeybees working these flowers. Here's a flower that's been pollinated. Here's a flower that has yet to be pollinated. The stigma is still green. So we're in the midst of pollination in our normal climate. Here we are inside, and you can see how much more advanced we are. Petals have fallen on the earliest ripening varieties, the shucks have split, the fruit is now pea size. So as I said, we clearly bloomed a good 2 weeks early, and I think we're still about 10 days early. This is a later blooming variety, so we still have some old blooms, but you can see the petals are falling, so pollination is over here. We have fruit, the shucks are splitting, the fruit is emerging. And so this is the same variety that was at full bloom that was being pollinated outside. So I'm looking forward to hopefully picking this fruit at least 10 days early. This year we had planned to force bloom even earlier. For various reasons it didn't quite happen, but it just gives you an idea of how much more advanced we are. Full leaves, we now have 3 centimeters of new shoot growth occurring inside compared to the fact that we're only at bloom outside. Here you can see that full tree renewal where we cut everything off last year. That's why there are no flowers here compared to the older wood. So it's just a good time to really evaluate this trial for where it's at in terms of the training systems, manipulating the roof to bring on early bloom, changing that program to optimize pollination. Now that we've gotten past pollination, we'll change the program again to retain greater heat and try to continue to force that early ripening. And hopefully in about 50 days, 55 days, we'll have ripe fruit in here, and you can see we'll still be maybe 10 days to 2 weeks outside.
Greg, what has your observations been just in terms of the overall tree health and disease inside to outside?
Yeah, as this is the 8th year of the trial, in the 3rd year we had devastating freezes before we had any covering systems of any kind that killed flowers, wiped out the crop, brought in bacterial canker. That was the year that we established the retractable roof, and we found that year that the trees recovered more quickly in that optimized environment of the covered roof compared to outside. But ultimately the trees outside recovered as well. Now, after 8 years, we've seen 5 more cumulative years of disease incidents. And I'd say inside the retractable roof, we have very healthy trees. We have, I think, 0 incidents of bacterial canker. We lost 1 tree in total from that freeze in 2012, whereas outside we've lost numerous trees. We continue to see oozing. We see a lot more fungi, mushrooms growing out of the trunks from old damage because the trees outside have been in the stressful environment. Too much water, too much spreading of bacteria during the growing season compared to inside. So with our covering system, we've been able to greatly improve the health of the trees over this 5-year period and the recovery.
Great. So in terms of people coming to visit to see firsthand, what would be your best guess at this point on when would be a good time to visit?
We are expecting cherries to be ripe, close to ripe, from mid to late June. And so I'm thinking a window from around June 15 to June 25 or so would probably be the optimal time to come and see our trial here.
Great. Thank you very much, Dr. Lang.
Glad to do it.